Good evening. This is Rahul Magan here as a Group Chief Executive Officer, Treasury Consulting, and also a venture capitalist. As we speak, Treasury Consulting is a multinational headquartered group based out India, Singapore, and Hong Kong. More importantly, we are 100% cash-rich group. Today, I would be covering my opinion about the gold. Today is Sunday and I spend considerable time, in collating the information about the Russia-Ukraine war, and also how the different central banks of the globe are accumulating the gold. So I spent almost 6 to 7 hours today on Google and trying to find out a lot of information, and few information, is still under the reading. I know you will not trust. Check this out. This is the proper bunch which I have taken. And in this bunch, I have studied almost many pages, but few pages are still pending. I'm a person who believes in research. So unlike Hindi media, I speak with facts. Let's begin the show. Russia-Ukraine war started near about 2.5 months ago. The Western world put lot of sanctions on Russia. Having said that, what had happened? Nothing. Russia was banned from SWIFT. SWIFT stands Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications. But Russia somehow passed this. In English, Russia not failed. The reason is Russia having its own sovereign financial network known as SPFS, System for Transfer of Financial Message. As of 2020, around 400 financial institutions joined that network. China also having the similar network known as CIPS, which is Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. Only in 2021, this payment system processed near about 12.68 trillion. You heard me right. 12.68 trillion worth of payments, which is approximately 80 to 85% of Chinese GDP. But the story is completely changing. As we speak, the global FX reserves stands near about 12.68 trillion. 12.68 trillion. Out of which US composition is approximately 59%. So out of 12.68 trillion, US composition is around 59%. But I got a very staring statistics, and once I got these statistics, I was like, what the hell? Basically, where are we heading? Do you know, guys, out of 12.68 trillion worth of FX reserves, 13%, 13% is gold, which means that approximately 1.7 trillion worth of gold is held by the central banks. You heard me very right. 1.5 trillion. The feeling which you are getting, I got the same feeling when I got these statistics. Thanks to Sunday, I am able to spare a lot of time in research. So the total FX reserves is 12.68 trillion, and out of which US hold near about 59% of the stake. And you would be surprised to know that gold is holding 13%, 1-3, which is near about 1.7 trillion. It means 1.7 trillion worth of gold is held by the central banks. The story is not ending here, rather it is starting from here. According to the statistics, the three top countries who hold the FX reserves, number one is the China with 3.2 trillion. 3.2 trillion. Number two is the Saudi Arabia, which is near about 447 billion. You would be surprised to know that China is holding 1.07 trillion worth of US securities, which they are cutting. As per the statistics, China is cutting the size of US securities, which means Chinese who used to invest extensively in the US securities, now they are cutting it, which means that the dollar demand will cut. I got more staring statistics. In the past 2 decades, the gold share in the foreign exchange reserve has been rising. Central banks across the world bought 463 tons of gold in 2021. This statistics is provided by International Monetary Fund. RBI too mopped 77.5 metric ton. 77.5 metric ton. It is second highest after 2009. The US dollar share of the world foreign exchange declined to 25-year low to 59% at the end of 2020. Now, these statistics are glaring, which means that the central banks of the globe are buying the gold. Because as we speak, the total global FX reserves is 12.68 trillion, and out of which 13% is gold, which means 1.7 trillion. Now, the media may not be highlighting this, probably newspapers might not be highlighting this, but one thing which is very clear, that the central banks are ready for any mess up. This is the reason they are buying the gold. That's the reason they bought 463 tons of gold in 2021. I have more glaring statistics which I got, from the internet. In 2016, China renminbi became the first emerging market currency to be included in SDR. SDR stands Special Drawing Rights. The others are US dollar, euro, yen, and pound sterling. Before I move further, in 2016 also, I said that this is the beginning of Chinese yuan. But the Einstein, Edison, Newton, they, said that Chinese will not survive. Rest is history. The other are US dollar, euro, yen, and sterling. China advocate the use of SDR basket as a global reserve currency. China long-term strategy is to peg currencies of its main trading partners to renminbi, while renminbi itself is pegged to a super sovereign reserve currency. So, the moral of the story is very, very clear, which is Russia, China, and the other central banks of the globe, they are very much mentally prepared regarding the movement in the gold. That is the reason they are buying the gold. I have one more statistics which I love to share. Now this statistics is more glaring. Now what this statistics is all about? Russia accounts 1.77% of global GDP. 1.77% of global GDP. It does account 42% of the global ammonium nitrate, which means a key raw material in the fertilizer. And Russia is the largest natural gas exporter of the globe. As we speak, Russia is the largest natural gas exporter of the globe. So how this story is shaping up? Russia, who is basically Europe, is near about 40% to 50% dependent on Russia as far as the natural gas requirements are concerned. So they need the natural gas from Russia. Russia is very clear from one side that they won't be giving natural gas in dollars. They will giving natural gas in Russian ruble, which technically known as bilateral currency pact. I'm planning a video on bilateral currency pact on my YouTube channel. So it means that Russia wanted to have a bilateral currency pact between GBP dollar, between euro dollar, between Swiss franc dollar, between yuan ruble, so between GBP and ruble, euro and ruble, Swiss franc and ruble, Chinese yuan and ruble, and maybe more currency. Somehow or not, Russia is getting successful now, which means that once these bilateral pacts are signed, then the demand for the US dollar will come down substantially. And once the demand for US dollar will come down substantially, then US, who is already sitting at near about 32 trillion worth of debt, it would bring towards the complete default. Yes, I know what I'm talking about, because 2 years ago when I said that the Future Group will default, then everyone laughed. They said that Future Group bought up by Reliance, now Future Group would be the future. You know what had happened yesterday. Reliance called off the deal with the Future Group. And now the 25,000 crores, I repeat, 25,000 crores worth of the debt is, where it's going to be. US dollar is moving towards bankruptcy because the current statistics are glaring. Whether it is the gold which is held by the central banks, whether the percentage of the gold as a composition of FX reserves, whether the increase in the usage of the Chinese yuan, which is near about 6% of the global FX reserve, whether, the Russian dominance in terms of the metals, in terms of the natural gas, and the bilateral currency pact to be signed between Russia and other countries. And last but not the least, the sovereign financial network, which Russia already owned. Keeping this as a big factor, I feel that the sanctions which West is imposing on Russia is going to be futile. Because after 1 week of healthy research on the Google, printing of lot of information, like you can see that I've just shown you, I concluded that the sanctions which the world is putting on Russia is practically useless. Which means that we are either heading towards the gold standard, the Bretton Woods gold standard of 1970, or gold would be beyond exceptions. I repeat, gold would be beyond exceptions. And one thing which is certainly sure, now is that the gold, basically the US dollar, is heading towards a probable crash, which practically means that USD would lose. And God forbid, if Federal Reserve hike the rate by 50 bips in this upcoming May meeting, and subsequent 25 bips probably in the upcoming meetings, then it's an end of show, because it means that the finance cost, the cost of raising the debt by US would grow substantially, which eventually would trigger the default of US dollar. Like my way, I always warn the people, and this time also I want the people. Rest is definitely your call, because to me, like, dislike, comment, views, all these things are immaterial. I promised every day we'll have a Facebook Live. I'm always trying to have a Facebook Live of 15 minutes every day. Thank you very much. But today is a Super Sunday, and I got a lot of information on the Google. I am comprehending more information. Probably in the upcoming Facebook Connects, I would be showing more information. But one thing which I would like to speak once again, after collating all these information from the Google, one thing is certainly sure, that the media is paid. Because none of the information which I got from the Google is reflected by the media. None of the information. This is Rahul Magan from Treasury Consulting Group. You knew my personal number, 9899242978. 9899242978. Have a great time ahead.